disciplinary information with the questions we had from last time, and then we're gonna open some new topics next time. I do want to go to public comment first. I also do want to give a heads up that we're gonna end a few minutes early tonight because there is one pressing question in the committee upstairs that we also need to review, which hopefully will save us all a lot of sorrows. So with that, I'm going to hand over for public comment. We have two, I don't know how many, who else is here as members of the public, but two members of the public that I know of. Let's go ahead. Anyone?
Hi, my name's Emily Kitson. I'm a parent in the district. I have two children. I'm also an occupational therapist. So just coming just to kind of, see how everything is going, get more information about things that are going on.
Megan Williams, as a SEPTA rep, most of you know me. I've spoke with Liz about this. I would like to know what are protections in place for children who have been identified through MTSS, but have not actually been identified as having an individual IEP yet. Because I think that we have an area of growth where we need to look at when we start the MTSS process. And we are starting to evaluate a child, and a child is known to have behavioral issues and things impacting them. The answer can't be that the child's not classified as to why a child can have incidents that follow exactly why that MTSS structure was put in place in the first place.
So yeah, I'd like to sort of hand that off to Damien and folks to answer. Before we do, I just want to set some context around that, which is even before a student has been classified, they're entitled to a manifestation hearing if there is any question of a potential effect of the disability on a disciplinary finding, or one that would qualify for a manifestation hearing anyway. So you don't have to say, I'm going through child find, and then the student is classified, and now they have the protections of the manifestation hearing.
My issue is not with discipline, my issue is with support.
Yeah,
In
understood.
terms of when a child is having significant meltdowns or scenarios within a classroom or throughout their day, what are we doing in terms of communication to make sure that a child is not injured or those scenarios do not escalate? How are we going to handle those things? What are going to be communications to parents? How are we supporting the staff within the building before the actual IEP meeting takes place?
Just for clarity, so are we talking about students that are like a level 2 or 3 in the tier process that have been already referred to Child Find and are in the process of being evaluated? Is that?
They're in the process
they're in
of
the
being
process of being evaluated
evaluated by the district.
You're
They've
wondering, so.
Yeah, they already have
Okay.
things structured through MTSS, and they're having difficulties.
So they are a
and
child
things.
that's suspected of having a disability.
They
and
are
that's-
identified as a child
Okay.
who is most likely going to need an IEP at minimum of 504, and
So that's my
need
clarification.
help.
So you're really looking at that 60-day period during Child Find. What is our obligation and what are we doing? Okay.
yeah, you can't just
So
say a
that-
child's not classified.
So we could maybe ask it for some information about that at our next meeting, just like what are we doing during those 60, well, hopefully it's not lasting a whole 60 days, but what are we doing during that process of Child Find to support students that are going through the process? Okay, thank you.
Do we not want to impart into that now? or-
Yeah, let's,
Um,
if we could take a few
If
minutes.
we can,
Yeah, I
Bearing in
mean,
mind that we, I think
The
that's a
good
idea.
news is, and look, this is my third day, so I'll speak with grand authority, okay? The good news is that obviously if an MTSS plan is in place, it means that this child is on the radar. And that means that there's descriptors in that plan that basically say who's responsible for what and what are the responses to a child's behavior, and if that behavior is self-destructive and so forth and so on. The other thing I would say is that each of our schools has a structure in place to deal with those occurrences in addition to having access to a regional crisis team if they would need it. So I could leave that there as a precursory area. I think we want more details, but that is definitely my answer for now.
Yeah, I think that follows the broad base of
Sure.
what I already know.
Gotcha.
I think
Fair
more looking for, specified scenarios in terms of if you're knowing that what is in place has not worked and you have staff within your district or within your building that do not know how to handle those situations, they know who to reach out to as their outlets and things like that. These are things that have been conveyed to me that were not in place at least. And they need to be. Like people need, I said to Liz, very frankly, we do need some professional development around what is appropriate and where they're supposed to go within the chain of command to make sure that children are taken care of adequately when they're in that process.
Understood. So that is definitely something that we're working on through MTSS, is making sure that while it's not misconstrued to be an IEP, because we're going to find out if the student needs one or not, but there's still an expectation that information that we have that was discussed through the MTSS committee, that we know to be helpful strategies for a student, are distributed to people who would be working with the student or might have contact with them. So, so definitely it's, I hear you. And, even if it's not technically a behavior intervention plan that is attached to an IEP, there's still behavior support plans and things like that can be
And a bit could be
provided,
put in
right.
place in theory without an IEP at any point in time for any student.
So I think the communication process of making sure that those who need to know are informed and that we're closing the loopholes is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
I'm sorry I joined a few minutes late, but I think the comment was just made that most schools do have a crisis intervention plan. I don't know if they do, because my son's actually in primary, and I did ask that question and was told that there was none. I know that was something that Dr. Fairbairn was trying to get, like crisis intervention teams for each school. That was trying to get into play like last year, and I don't know where that ended up. Is that actually in every single school now at this point?
There is a safety team in each school, and we do, with the building administrators, we make sure that we have an updated list as to who is trained in psychological and physical management techniques. The resource that we use for that level of intervention. But I would say that it goes through the safety team, but it depends on the nature of the crisis. So if we're talking about a student who's an emotional crisis, or if there's something else, it depends.
I guess what's the difference between a safety team and a crisis intervention team? I just don't know.
Fair question. So the safety team looks at other matters in the building, like if there needed to be an evacuation, and usually, this thing just, I wanted to make sure it didn't stop the recording. So the safety team, the crisis team will be an offshoot, a subgroup basically of the safety team. So, but that is a good question. We should know exactly who comprises that in each building. So we'll find that out for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this, but there's been a lot of elopement issues, not in Carmel, but just, in the news right now. My husband actually is, an SRO, so he kind of knows some of the stuff going on in NAPAC. I guess, what are we looking at in our schools to try to prevent that? I know we have great lockdown, not letting people in the building. I guess, has anybody given a fresh look as to little kids getting out of the building? Because my kid is
so
like
we
a
have
master at getting out of
added
things.
an elopement annex to all the building level safety plans. Obviously, like with anything else, I would say that revisiting that, training that, going over that each and every year, there's no expiration date on that. But what an elopement ban, basically, and you know, when I first heard of this, I thought of an episode of I Love Lucy or Honeymooners or something. When I heard elopement, I said, what are they talking about here? But it is all focused on a child who's leaving campus or leaving direct supervision. All right, so that is part of the school safety plan, and one in which people are assigned to different locations in order to quickly find that child, collaborate with LEAs, law enforcement agencies, and also parent communication.
So I guess what stops a kid though from getting out of a building?
Well,
Because we don't necessarily have alarms on doors as they're going out.
that's true.
So how do we know?
Again, a good question. So first I'll mention that any updates on legal requirements pertaining to elopement plans, things like that, we've been distributing them to the building administrators for distribution with their safety teams. So Frank Guglieri, who's the regional safety coordinator in BOCES, he sends out updates. We distribute those. So that way we're all up on information. And then with respect to students who, if they've ever had a history of eloping at all, we make sure that it's listed on the IEP, that the team is aware. Oftentimes there are behavior intervention plans attached to students who are at elopement risk. We make sure that the classroom is, if it's known that we have multiple students who may elope, we aim to make sure that they're not placed like right next to an exit door. We try to be strategic about that. And also it's basically a coordinated effort within the building to make sure that the principal is aware, the psychologist, the social worker, other teachers, other staff can respond quickly in case. So it's a lot of proactive steps, and it's often on an individualized basis. But again, that is also where the school safety team comes into play, because although they might not be working directly with a student who has an IEP and a behavior intervention plan, they're also there to help strategize things like that to make sure that the building is safe.
And I would just also suggest, and we have talked about this because of my son's situation, is expanding that to the bus training as well. And Dr. Kenny did a great job helping our situation because the buses had a lot of kids on them. And my first thought was if they had to evacuate this bus and they have more than one eloper on this, which I knew they did in that particular bus, there is no way you're going to tell these elementary school children, stay there while I go and get this other kid out of the building. You are going to have kids all over like the road. It's just not a safe situation at all. And so making sure that that's our sort of like the kids are still within districts until they're at my front door. Kind of thing is what I envision it.
And continuing to be thoughtful of those kids that are in clubs or after-school activities or places like that do have one-to-ones and are loafers, that those people can run.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we
physically
have
Right.
a lot, it seems very silly, but we have a lot of times where one-to-ones are placed on chronic elopers and they have bad knees and they can't keep up with the kids.
Yeah, I will say my
That's a problem.
risk was much
I
faster.
feel like I should be very strict, quite honestly, but just chasing.
I couldn't agree more, Megan. I think it's very important to have, people who can
And I think-
move. But one of the other segments of good news that I want to share is that, to your question, my touring of the schools, there was a monitor in every hallway with a line of sight to the outside doors, and especially at the, high school and the middle school. Obviously, there was more direct supervision at the elementary schools as well, in the classrooms and with the doors being locked of each classroom. So all those are really helpful preventative measures. But what I was really pleased to see, especially at the middle school, because my history has been a lot of eloping happens at a middle school, with emotional regulation being a big challenge at that age group. There was a monitor in every hallway with a line of sight to the exterior doors. So I thought that was great. But none of it is, I think there's always work to be done in that area. And I don't think that work will ever have an expiration date, because as I get older, I realize that There might be one or two kids who are even faster than me. I'm pretty fast.
My son is pretty fast.
That's great.
They don't run when they're supposed to, but they run. Oh, the Jesus when they're not supposed to.
Oh, yeah,
Let me
my
just
daughter
say
was
that.
a lot faster,
Yeah.
heading for the fences than she was on the track. I'll give you that.
So
Yeah, with
just,
that,
yeah, I'm gonna give you one other piece of information about something that the board is working on. We have been working with our attorneys, actually doing a safety audit of our facilities. So there is part of that, and there's been many walkthroughs, is that we are looking at our actual borders and, you know, where there is places you can leave and where you can. So those are all things that the board is very aware of, and we are gonna be getting some updates on how we can mitigate some of those things.
Maybe take some of the kids and say like a escape route type of a thing.
I love it.
Case studies.
My son will figure it out.
So I think that we are looking at this on many aspects at the moment, but thank you for bringing that to us, because it's a concern
It's
of
very scary
everybody
when you
that's-
see it on the news and
absolutely.
stuff. And I feel my son is very safe where he is, and I'm not saying, but you do read these news
Sure,
articles
yeah.
and it, you just
Absolutely.
can't help but think
Terrifying.
that.
And that's actually, your question is a good sort of transition into what we're discussing today. I am gonna sort of cut in half the synergy topic, just mindful of time, but I do want to focus on some of the things we talked about, how synergy can be used to sort of help us share information where a student has a BIP or maybe have information others need to know, including what members. And the other piece I wanted to talk about was, as we look at using synergy as we document DASA issues, we'd asked if we could see a sort of breakdown, or if we were using this to track whether something fell under one of the titles or was under, or required law enforcement intervention or otherwise was falling into one of those categories. So if we could start with that and see where we are.
Sure, absolutely, thank you. All right, why don't we skip ahead? In the PowerPoint slides, we do have, let's keep going, yeah. Just a couple more. Okay, so here, we looked at in synergy with the help of the technology department, which is part of why I invited Dr. Wade. We looked into how we can record incidents alongside the disciplinary referrals. So we, there are ways that this can be done, that DASA incidents are reported in synergy along with the New York State reporting incident type. And with respect to, I remember DASA reports, we talked about how those were digitized on Droplet. They must be documented in synergy, so we've established that. So Droplet might go to the wayside because it's required that we put into synergy. Thanks to our tech department, we are able to create a flag in synergy to denote if a student has a behavior intervention plan. Let's just go to the next slide. Okay. All right, so with respect to the type of violation, so this is what it will look like when an administrator is putting in an incident. So for example, if something is along the lines of a DASA and cyberbullying, that is the drop down that can be used for that. With respect to the description, we're coming up with a template of required aspects to put in that go beyond what is already there as far as the date and the type. Let's go next thing. Is that the last one? Let's see. Actually, okay, let's go back a little bit. Dr. Wade, did you have anything to add on that?
So any teacher or professional staff member can go into the system, describe what the behavior is, and then under violations, you can pick more than one. And so we put into the system all of the New York State. So when you see NYS, those are actually mandated DASA findings. So they would all be there in conjunction with other things. So it's a very long list. So you can see there, it says cutting class, and then there are a whole range of DASA. So every time you are able to identify that, later in the year, you're able to run reports of what all of the DASA complaints were, and that's why it's so important to put in the system. But the incident overview is generic, so it can encompass any incident that happens. And so it's user-friendly to teachers because they can go to the same place to record it, and then what they record as the violations will tag and trigger the information of what we can report.
Okay, so once a teacher is reporting an incident and they note that they believe this falls under DASA category or under Title VI or so forth, well, that would be later in the determination process. Does that trigger, how do we make sure that then we trigger, we have so many days to respond, we have so many days to issue a finding?
It's really through the administration. So as soon as there is something that is brought to the administrator's attention, we're all trained on how long we have to do the investigation and to issue a response. So I don't think that we rely necessarily on reminders from
But
From
when
this,
in terms of starting the clock.
Sure.
When a teacher highlights that a behavior that they've observed might be DASA relevant, that generates some sort of communication to the administration.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So they would get an email letting them know that they can go into their part of Synergy and review. And you had brought up, we wouldn't necessarily know at this point. Certainly if a teacher knows they can tag it, but then the administrator could come to a determination, and they also have the list. So
Yep.
even if it wasn't originally recorded as a DASA complaint, in their interviews of students, more information may come, and then they can identify it as a DASA complaint. Or again, it's a totally separate behavior. It's really a broad referral system, so you just have to go to one place to report all of the incidents.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I'm looking forward because, we've sort of struggled sometimes with seeing how many DASAs, what categories they fell under and so forth. So this is really nice. Once they do make a determination, is it recorded back into Synergy whether this was founded or not, and whether it impacted one of the titles or not?
Correct.
Yes.
So if you went to a student screen, so the administrator can see the student screen, and the teachers who have that student, there are different tabs that you can go to, and one of them would be behavioral referrals. And so a teacher or an administrator could see, if a student had 5 throughout the year, the referral, and then what was, if it was founded or not, and then the consequences. So they'd all be listed there.
Very nice.
And there's also a drop down. Let's go back to the very first slide. Thank you, Alex. There's also, and all these names I should mention, what you see, what might look like names, they are fake names and they're blurred out. So just wanted to mention that. Underneath violations, there is an option for tagging other students who may be involved. And then when an incident is addressed, there's also a drop down for the intervention that was used. And again, additional information can be provided into the description category, but there are options for indicating like if a student was counseled after a situation.
Really glad to see this because I remember this has sort of come up as a discussion at the beginning of each year, and then again at the end of each year when we look at the SSDC reporting and are kind of baffled that there's not more of it in more detail.
Yeah.
And this really looks like a very positive step.
Thank you. And really thank Dr. Wade for helping us to get where we needed to go with Synergy and working with us to make improvements as we need to.
Does it give you a breakdown of staff who file certain types of complaints within the bill? Does it give you any of that type of data?
I'm not aware that there is a report like that on each individual complaint. It would list the witnesses which could be student businesses or it could be employees.
Yeah, so I think my concern was more like if you felt that there happened to be a segment of the population or a staff member who seemed to have a low tolerance for a certain segment of the student population, there's no way to draw the data of they filed
Oh, so
this
that's an
many
interesting question.
things
Yeah.
Tracking
about
someone.
these
I
types of
think we could look into
documents.
that, and I think
Right.
that is very possible also through other means, which
Like,
is,
I think
that
that
if
would be
you-
good to have as information
Of
to give
course.
to a parent, if a parent was calling in to question that, you know, you could have hard data and look at that and say, administration's looking at that, bring it to the board if needed. You know, I think that would help ease a lot of issues when it comes to certain sensitive topics that
And that
often
I-
get brought up within these types of things.
And that actually raises an important question, which is this really opens the door to a lot more detailed and tabulation of DASA reports tied to student behavior. Can one of these behavioral incidents be opened where it's a report about behavior by a staff member, or where it's a report where the student who carried out the behavior is not known yet?
So so could we run a report that shows, like,
No,
I'm
so
sorry.
suppose we have an incident of cyberbullying.
Yeah.
And we want to report it, but we don't know who actually is the student doing the cyberbullying.
Right.
How would that be reported here?
You wouldn't list the witnesses yet or the perpetrator,
Okay,
for lack of a better word. So they're each independent
okay,
fields, so you can still record the incident without identifying your determination that this person violated.
understood.
But then
So-
you can go back and amend the documentation.
Correct, the administrators would be able to go back in. But one of the fields that it identifies is the victim. So-
Okay, so you could start with a report where you know the victim, but don't necessarily know the other
Correct.
information.
Right.
So it's victim, witnesses, and then who the person is that you've determined did it, or persons, if there's multiple.
Yeah, and that can be saved and then resaved as
Right.
times go on, right?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
very promising, and yeah, really looking forward to data of this.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try and keep us to about 5 minutes from here. Do you want to show us what we have for the first month? Understanding we'll come back in a month and, look in more
Sure.
detail.
Okay,
Because some of these things weren't there from day one in school, I think.
yes.
And so I'm not expecting that this data will include all of these fields, but as we come back in future meetings, obviously.
Okay. Yes, understood, thank you. So as we've seen before, the incidents are much more high in terms of numbers at the secondary level as compared to the three elementary schools.
Do we have comparison from last year at the same time, or no?
Can we go to the next slide? Let's see. I don't have that right now, but we can definitely do that for the next meeting,
Great.
the first month. So let's just go back. So what we did was, because of the holidays that we had, we tried to get as close to a solid 4 full weeks as possible. So that's in part why we have this time frame here.
Are we gonna be able to do that, given the change in?
So I think we can, to some, it might not be able to make a complete apples to apples comparison, but eSchool does still, we can still pull things on eSchool.
Okay.
Yeah, even though it's not what we're using right now for this year. So, yeah, but that's a great question. Okay, and so,
Will you, okay,
Oh,
good. You
sorry.
can break it down into what the incidents were, right? That's next.
yeah, let's
Okay.
go with that next one. So I realize that there will be more to dive into with these, but this is an overview that we have based on the categories that we have in Synergy at this time.
So like the teacher referral, that is the same one we had the problem with last year, because we didn't know what it meant. I thought we were removing that and putting in the actual behaviors, because remember, Jen, that was where like everything was in the same thing, but we didn't know what it meant.
Right, so that raises the question, is this just from the first week of the year when we're, as
I have no
these
idea.
are coming
No,
up?
it says it's
Yeah,
till today.
right, so that's a great question.
Yeah. What does teacher referral, like, well, it doesn't tell us what the behavior was, just
Yeah.
says the teacher referred it.
well, if you look, there seems to be some correspondence with Some of
but
the other
90
categories,
But
yes.
91 of them
I know.
were in that category. That
Right.
made, so the most were in that category, both in the middle school and the high school, and we don't know what it means.
And this is a one.
And I also don't know what inappropriate behavior means. I can't objectively look at that and tell you what that means. And
Well-
that's why we asked for there to be, sorry, for people that weren't here last year, that each, and we obviously did it, and some of them, profanity, late to class, fighting, those I can look at that, I know what that means. I know what it means when someone's late to class, I can understand that, right?
I mean,
But
the-
I don't know what a teacher referral
Yeah.
means, and I certainly don't know what inappropriate behavior means.
Yeah, I guess what it comes down to, one, I believe this is a one-to-one mapping, so every incident has exactly one category. So then, look, the data scientist in me says anytime you have a category called miscellaneous,
That's where
something's
they all go,
wrong.
but that's why we said this last year,
That's
that
right.
they all
So-
were in the same category and we didn't know what it meant.
Shouldn't it tie to like a student handbook of some sort where it's
Yeah,
like,
ideally-
these are like the laws of the school and then that
They are
violated ties to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so I think that what we need to do is bring together a committee and look at redacted descriptions of the behaviors, because I have a feeling that they might look similar to some of the other categories, but do not align completely, which is part of why we're still struggling to come up with another category in addition to inappropriate behavior and teacher referral. Because obviously we have profanity, rudeness, late for class, insubordination.
Which would all be inappropriate behavior.
Right.
Yes.
So why are they
It's
not-
all inappropriate.
So why are they not
But that's what I think.
putting them in the right?
That's what my question
They're
is.
separate. No, Michael, they're different.
So
So
you're
these
you're
are
saying there's
each-
no
there
redundancies?
is no redundancy.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
down this road.
Yeah, that's what I asked with the one-to-one mapping. I said,
I do wonder though if
in this it is or isn't, because you can select,
maybe they selected the
Oh,
wrong
you
one.
can select multiple.
think.
But we
considered
shouldn't
to
even
be-
have a teacher referral sheet. That's not
Yeah.
a behavior.
No.
That's an action.
Or a response.
Yep, agreed.
It's not a behavior.
So let's see what we can find out. So for next time, the three parts of this I'd like to look at,
Teacher
breakdown.
Where did Mr. Wade go? We need him back here to help us mix
Um,
these categories.
What we can do to eliminate those two miscellaneous categories.
Inappropriate.
And I think this is what we talked
Yeah.
about last year. This is the easiest
Yeah.
place to go. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm the teacher, I refer to.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
but it doesn't
to your
sound
point,
good.
and I apologize that,
Erin,
yes,
sorry.
thank you. To Erin's point, if we could impact map to sections of the code of conduct, that might make it a lot easier to say, we're treating this as, treat it as data.
And just looking at this quickly, like, this is very interesting, like, to me, like, look at Matthew Patterson. Matthew Patterson has 6 incidents of children being in, to your point, unauthorized places. Why? What does that even mean?
At elementary school, that's kind of.
And 6 of them, we didn't learn from the first incident. So I wonder if it's all the same place and there's just some place that kids are going that they're not supposed to be. That would be what I would think, and that's an easy fix, right? Like, where are they going and why are they being able to get there?
Or you could technically be one child who
Keeps going back to the same
the
place.
behavior
I mean,
and they keep on hiding in the same location.
Matthew Patterson's playground alone has like a lot, because my son did go around the whole building
Yeah.
once, so you can get out.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And the blanks, we can't have blanks, 22 blanks in the middle school.
Yeah. I was
That's
thinking
too many
maybe
blanks.
have the offer of the district office.
So this is definitely something that we're working on, and Rome
Thank
wasn't
you.
built in
Well,
a day, I remind
it's
myself.
definitely, no, it's way better than it
Yeah, it's
was.
huge progress.
So
I
we've
wanna
made
be
a lot
clear.
of progress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, but
That's
what
the
I
idea.
detect also is that there might be a system error in terms of how things are being classified and
Yeah.
people who are entering data don't understand how it's ultimately presenting.
Yeah, that could be.
So
good.
that is something that we need to look into.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
what they're intending to communicate is not what is showing up.
But I really want one of those teacher referrals.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I
actually-
think that's something that you guys as administrators, if you go into all of those and you look at them and that's where you can probably figure out what categories to write. They're
Yeah.
probably gonna be,
That's why I think that we have to
Similar.
look at the descriptors, yeah,
all right.
right,
All right,
thank
sounds
you.
great. So with that, for next time, if we can sort of get a progress report on that. I'd also like if we could get, now that fall sports is wrapping up, if we could get enrollment numbers for fall sports by classification.
Yes,
And with that, so those two, I think I may have some more color on that as we sort of get closer, so we'll talk. I'll send an email, and with that, I think we are gonna wrap up so that we can, because there is an important tax question, unfortunately. happening upstairs that we also need to weigh in on, but before I do,
Listen to,
Yes, listen
not
to.
weigh in on.
No, weigh in on as members of the public.
Yes, that we could do.
So with that in mind, anyone else, anything that we need to cover before we finish? Otherwise, with that, I will adjourn this meeting of the
Thank you.
Carmel Central School
Thank you,
District Special
guys.
Education Support Services and Wellness.
Sorry.
Have a good night.
Yes, Mr. Wise is our chair, so if you send it to
Thanks.
Mr. Wise and
No.
just put